coming up to this live, I told you that I really believe that one of the few experts who understand the mindset in Washington is you. And you can contribute, you can make us, you can, somehow explain to us what is happening in the mind in Washington, and what is the end game in the West Asia, which you mean in the Middle East, considering the case of Iran, the confrontation between the United States and Iran, which we know Benjamin Netanyahu, he is, if I would say this, if he has a single major goal in his life, in his in his position, and for Israel and for the future of Israel, for the agenda he's seeking for, it would be a war, an all-out war between Iran and the United States. Is he achieving that by putting out these sort of absurd conditions?
It looks like it. Nima, Netanyahu is committed to the Zionist dream of greater Israel, and he has successfully used American money and American blood in the 21st century to eliminate the obstacles to greater Israel, such as Libya, Iraq, and Syria. And the remaining obstacle, and always the largest, is Iran. And so he knows that Israel can't take on the Iranians alone. And he learned that in the short missile war with Iran. And so he has doubled down his efforts to force a war upon the United States with Iran. Now, Trump would like to avoid this war and would be content to have an agreement that the Iranians will not make nuclear weapons. But this doesn't serve Netanyahu's purpose. So what Netanyahu has done is to intervene in the negotiations about nuclear weapons and impose the additional condition that Iran has to give up its missiles and can no longer be armed with missiles. That is for the reason of protecting Israel. And of course, it leaves the Iranians helpless in the face of an Israeli attack. So this has sort of put Trump in a spot he doesn't want to be in. We've learned that the way Trump negotiates is he makes threats. And then in exchange for a deal, he withdraws those threats. Now, that's what was working in the case of his talks with Iran. He's sending aircraft carriers. He's talking tough, holding meetings with some of the remaining Arab city-states, putting pressure on the Iranians of an American attack if they don't agree to this nuclear deal, which I think the Iranians are perfectly willing to agree to. And the Israelis realize that, and so they have now intervened in this discussion, imposed another condition that the Iranians cannot agree to. So this leaves Trump on the spot because he said, no agreement, we're going to attack. And he sent these forces. Now, I don't think Trump meant to attack. This was just his way of negotiating. But he's been outsmarted by Netanyahu, who once all the negotiations were underway and the aircraft carriers are deployed and Trump's made these threats, now nothing can come of Trump's threats because of this condition the Israelis have imposed that is totally unacceptable to the Iranians. So we're now going to see what Trump does. Is he tricked into a situation in which the United States has to start a major war?
And Paul, how do you think that after all, we know that today, the two teams are there in Geneva. The American and Iranians are there. Omanis are there to mediate the negotiations between Iranians and Americans. Do you think that the Trump administration would put what Israel wants first, or would put the priorities of Israel first, or you see still there could be some sort of you know negotiations between the two parties that could bring some sort of sanity to the whole situation in the Middle East? How
Um,
how far Netanyahu can force the Trump administration, in your opinion?
I think Netanyahu has the upper hand. Um, there, the Israelis control so much opinion in the United States, the Congress, and also the Israeli intent to have a war or to have the United States in war with Iran. This also appeals to elements in the American military security complex. All the armaments manufacturers, this benefits them. They sell more weapons, they make more money. Uh, it appeals to security agencies because it raises their profile. They're now in need, and so their power goes up. So between the Israeli influence overall in the United States with the Congress, with the fact that the Trump administration consists essentially of Zionists, all of his major appointments as secretaries, they're Zionists. And we still have the neoconservatives, very outspoken in commentating in online literature, and this is a formidable body that thinks that the Muslim threat has to be finally eliminated. So Trump is sort of between a rock and a hard place. You know, on one side of him, he has the people who are ready to profit from war with Iran, and on the other side, he's got Netanyahu pushing, and so it would be difficult for Trump to refuse. However, um, it's entirely possible because there are elements in the American military who are aware of how serious such a conflict could be for the United States. Uh, the Iranians um, possibly could sink the American aircraft carriers. This would be a big blow to American prestige. The Iranians could possibly successfully attack the American bases in the area. Again, this would be a huge defeat for American prestige. And the consequence of such defeats could be the Americans start talking about using nuclear weapons. Well, what prospect does that lead to? Do the Russians want nuclear war that close to their borders? Do they want to see yet another country that's not allied with the United States and Israel destroyed? What happens to their position? And what about China? China at some point has to get tired of going into a country, making lots of investments, and then having the Americans destroy it. The Chinese were very heavily involved in the oil business in Libya. They lost all of that. Again, in Venezuela, it looks like they're going to lose the investments there. A third time would be Iran. So people who are capable of thinking in the U.S. military are raising red flags that this really isn't a war that we can tell you the outcome. It may have disastrous consequences, and that Israel, it really isn't worth it. It's not worth these risks. So who will prevail? I don't know. I don't know who will prevail. Whether the people who have common sense and see the risk, or whether it will be the Israel lobby and Netanyahu and armaments manufacturers. This is the big question that remains to be decided.
Yeah, Paul, I think the other dimension of a war between Iran and the United States would be the Strait of Hormuz, which connects the Persian Gulf to the Arabian Sea. And we know that these countries, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, UAE, Kuwait, Qatar, Iran, they all use this strait to send their oil and gas to the other countries. It's something like, in terms of the oil flow, it's going to be 20% of the global petroleum liquid consumption. And the LNG is going to be 25%. These are huge, would influence the global economy. If we bring in, Paul, bring in not just the Strait of Hormuz, if we bring in the Bab el Mandab in the Red Sea, that's 12% of the global petroleum. That is huge. I don't know. Are they really thinking about the escalation that could happen, and how is that going to influence the global economy, and who's gonna suffer the most, in your opinion?
Well, of course, the effects would be dramatic. But I don't think the oil flows are playing a very large role in the decision. The decision is about Israel's power. It's about the way Trump makes decisions, and he has set up a situation that he thought would lead to a nuclear agreement with Iran, and the thing would be over. But he's been outfoxed by Netanyahu, and so he's kind of in a position. What can he pull back? At some point, there may be louder voices from within the Trump administration taking the line that no, we mustn't risk this war. And the main reason won't be the oil flows. It will be the possible consequence for American bases, American aircraft carriers, American prestige. Do defeats lead to pressure to use nuclear weapons? If so, what genie does that let out of the bottle? What position then does Russia have to take, and China? And are we actually just going to be in war with Iran? Or are we going to have ultimatums delivered to us by the Kremlin that they will not stand for any nuclear war that close to their border? And that we'd better forget it. People can't say what the Russian, in the past, the Russians have just sort of walked away, walked away. But this may be one of those things they can't walk away from. We see already the Russian foreign minister speaking out publicly against what seems to be the pending deal in Ukraine, which basically is just an economic deal. And it kind of looks like a stab in the back to the Russian military. So if the foreign minister is already speaking out about that, if there's a prospect of a war that can get out of control, that would have serious consequences for Russia, then they may intervene or threaten to. The same for China. The Chinese have a lot invested in, at least in terms of hopes, in the new Chinese Silk Road. Well, if if Iran becomes a place where nuclear weapons are used, then that whole scenario is in danger. And so it really just depends on whether the people in the American military who have enough sense and independence to think can find the courage to speak out, then all of this could be stopped. And it would be, in that sense, a defeat for Netanyahu, which is very much needed. It could actually start a process where, for the first time, the United States stands up to Israel. And if the outcome is that Trump tells Netanyahu to go to hell, this would be a great victory for the whole world, including Iran. And that outcome is not impossible. It may not be highly likely, but it's not impossible. Of course, the cabinet secretaries, the Secretary of Defense and Homeland Security, and the rest of them, they're Zionists, and they're probably not capable of thinking outside of Israeli interest. For them, the United States and Israel are the same. But there are educated American officers in the military who would look at this very differently and would say, why are we risking our prestige for Israel? And why are we risking this prestige in a way that could lead to us trying to recover our prestige by attacking Iran with nuclear weapons? What would be the consequence of that? And these people are more intelligent, more cautious, less enamored of serving Israel at all costs. They could prevail. I wouldn't bet my life on it, but it's a possibility.